everyone. Welcome to iTEACH, the Tar Heel Teachers Radio Show. I'm Marlo Artis. I'm the moderator of this program, and I'm so fortunate to be joined by a fantastic group of individuals here in the studio here at Bronco-iRADIO.com. So, ladies, go ahead and introduce yourselves and let everybody know who we are.
I'm Ashley Garrison. I represent elementary educators.
I am Arisha Smalls, and I represent middle school educators.
I'm Cassandra Parsons, and I represent the EC population.
And I'm Dia Collins with the high school.
So this is an edifying experience, and we are all about learning and growing. So today we're very fortunate that joining us for the entire hour is a great friend of ours. She's a wonderful individual, and she just happens to be North Carolina's Media Coordinator of the Year. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Pamela Sands, and I'm representing the media department.
We're so glad to have you here. Now, one of the functions of our show is that we talk about the top educational topics of the week. And there's so much going on, so we're going to go ahead and just jump right in and discuss everything that we love to discuss. And if you would like to join our conversation, you can join at our Facebook page. It's Tar Heel Teachers. You also can go to the blog, tarheelteachers.blogspot.com, and we're also on Twitter at Tar Heel Teachers. So we're going to check during our break at about 5:20 to see who's joining the conversation, and we would love to hear what you've got to say. So let's go ahead and jump into our great debate.
Our first topic this evening is canine reading programs and how dogs can come into libraries and help children who are struggling to read. There was an article recently in the newspaper about children canine share stories during pause for reading at the Cliffdale Library, but the school libraries do something similar to this as well. And of course, this is a topic that is near to my heart because anything we can do to encourage our readers who struggle or who are shy and don't like to read aloud, you just see a difference with them when you sit down with these dogs to read, and the dogs are trained, and it's an awesome program.
I was really fascinated as well, but I'm going to have to be honest, I'm not a dog lover, so I was thinking of the anxiety that some of the children may have felt going into the library and seeing those dogs, because I didn't grow up with a dog in my home, and that's what the article was saying, that a lot of children don't. So it exposes the students, but at the same time they may be a little bit fearful.
I'm not a dog lover either, I'm sorry.
No offense to the dog lover.
No, dogs are wonderful, and I know great dogs, but I don't have one myself. And I had a student when I taught at the elementary school who was deathly afraid of all animals, and he would just have a complete meltdown. And so I think of him when you say that, how this would not be a program. So of course, like anything, you just have to know your population and know your kids and whether or not this is a program that will work for them. But I've also seen kids who just completely bloom through this program as well.
I think sometimes as teachers you have to make certain that you break things up, and sometimes you have to think outside the box. So we're always trying to get kids to read, so let's bring in a dog. Next week, let's come to cats.
But I think the whole fear of the unknown is what's key here. And we keep that in mind in our classrooms too, that we have to give these kids opportunities and exposure to different things so they don't grow up developing a fear of something just because it's unfamiliar. Like you said, you've never had a dog at home, but if you had more interactions with dogs, then your fear wouldn't be there. So as far as public speaking, interactions with new technologies, they won't have fear of these things if they get more opportunities to use them.
Arisha, I don't want your twins to be fearful of dogs, so you and Lauren should go ahead and get them some
My
dogs.
husband has allergies.
I wanted to chime in.
Okay,
Sorry, I wanted to chime in because just recently I have a niece, and she is about 7 years old. No experience with dogs, and every time she went somewhere and there was a dog, she didn't want to go in. She didn't want to get out the car. To the point where, how do you take her to a little Christmas party if there's a dog there? Because she's going to be stuck on the outside. And they just recently bought a little puppy to try to get her over the fear. So I'm thinking, do they have something down like that in Pensacola? That's where she's at.
Made me think about the multiple intelligences, how we need to be able to reach all children. And I think, Marlo, what you said about exposure is key. Sometimes it is the unknown that makes us fearful. And my own experience, there was a dog that came to our church when I lived in Tennessee, and I did turn my nose up. But after I saw how the children reacted to the dog was very mild, gentle, was taught. It was a dog that was there to help sick people in the hospitals, and sometimes when they don't have other people coming to visit them, they can have a dog for therapy.
That's true.
And I did see a difference. So.
And see, we're working on a special project with my kids called Operation Inquiry. I'm working with the Governance Teacher Network, and the kids have to create their own products, their own invention. And so the kids were saying, well, if we do something related to animals, can we bring the animals? So of course that fear got up in me, like, oh my gosh. But if they come up with something innovative, who knows, that could change so many different lives, and then the process of what they learn throughout. So I'm going to go ahead and concede. So if any of my kids want to bring their animals to help with their project, I will allow.
Well, I want to be there when they bring that dog in, Marla.
We have to continue to grow as educators too. You know, there are a lot of things, animals, you know, all that. I just don't like, but I like the growth. I like new experiences, and I like teaching out the box. So.
Well, and one of the things with these programs is that these dogs are trained, just like service animals.
Right.
And they go through extensive training in a program, and they are trained to sit with the dogs, not to be hyperactive. We know new people enter the environment. They don't jump up and they don't lick and things. They sit down with the dog, and they're also trained to react to students reading. And the dogs will actually sit, nod their head, and nuzzle them to go on. Or, it really is an extensive program. So there's that aspect of it too. It's not just bringing any pet off the street, or I'm going to bring my dog from home so we can read to it. It is an extensive program to train these.
Mm-hmm. And see, I must be the dog lover here. I love dogs. And this opportunity, I think, is going to touch those kids that maybe don't have the interpersonal skills. Like Cassandra was talking about, the multiple intelligences. You know, you have those kids that are nonverbal, or maybe they just don't respond well to people, and that's okay. They might respond well to the animals, though. Having them there might give them that.
Okay, you be our pilot, Ashley.
Experience.
You're pilot.
I would love to
We'll
do
support
it.
you. I will. We'll
Let's get you
support you.
information about it.
Yes, please do.
Thank you very much. So there's an issue down in New Hanover County where, just a couple of days ago, yesterday actually, it was so cold, and we all had school, and a lot of the kids were at the bus stop. And so there were kids down in New Hanover County who were a little bit annoyed that they had to go to school in such extreme weather. And so they were tweeting the counties, the school system's Twitter. And they were saying, oh, come on, bro, I don't want to come to school, like using all the vernacular that they use right now. But some of the kids started cursing and started being really offensive. And so the school system had to send out a message and say, you have to be careful about what you put on social media. And I think that's a lesson that students need to learn, because your potential employers are going to look. Also, colleges. And I look on Facebook and everything, and kids have so much, and I think it's important that we as educators, and you being a media specialist, we have to tell them how to act appropriately on the internet.
And that's one of,
Go ahead.
That's one of the things we teach them through the media is about leaving their digital footprint, that these things don't go away. They might not think about it in 9th grade, that in 4 years when you're applying to colleges or you're going off to college, or after that when you're looking for employers, they look up your name, these traces are still going to be there. So they're going to see who you were 10 years ago.
And they don't, of course they don't believe us, right? I personally experienced that when I was doing my student teaching in college. They would not graduate me because I had something on my high school records. But it wasn't me, it was my sister, and I had to go before a school board and everything, and that was, back in high school. But yes, it does follow you.
Well, I have an excellent media coordinator where I work, who just happens to be here with us today. And we did the digital footprint activity with our classes, and they had like a little footprint cut out, and they had to put what would we find, if we were to trace your history. And a lot of the kids were saying they didn't want to participate because they were embarrassed by some of the things they've done or said online. But it made it real for them.
Right, but they were hiding because they were using anonymous and other names. They were hiding behind their text. So like anything else in the school system, like you were saying, we have to teach them. Now, children do have a voice, but they also have a place.
But you know what, that brings up something else, Cassandra, because hiding behind the screen and hiding behind your keyboard and your computers, I know it's a whole nother issue than this nice tweet that was out about weather, but I think people are sometimes they're somebody else. Like, they take on a different persona and they get bolder than they would be if the person was in their face.
But when something comes of that, that can still be traced to them. I mean, everything comes back to your IP address on your computer, and I don't care what name these kids use on their tweets. If the school ever wanted to follow through, or if something came of it, they can go back and still find who these kids are.
Our teachers have to be careful about that too, because some of the things that we put on social media, people are tracking, and you want to move up and go to different leadership positions, so you have to be really careful about what you put out there, especially if you're talking about a student, and we're going to talk about that in just a couple minutes.
Okay, our next topic, something that is near and dear to me about NC Board of Education reconsiders dropout policy. You guys chime in whatever you want to, but what I read about in my understanding of this article was that schools didn't want to use the dropout rates or the number of dropouts counting in their numbers against them.
And so what's going on with this dropout rate is they want to make certain that kids who go to a community college, that they are not counted as a dropout.
Right.
When in actuality, technically, they've dropped out of high school. Thank goodness they've enrolled in another program, but it's not comparable because it's an entirely different experience. So technically, I personally think they should have to count it in the dropout rate for North Carolina public schools because they no longer attend the public school system.
You can say dropout or you can say transition, because I think it's a continuation of education. And if you look at our schools now, there are children that are a lot older attending high schools now. There are students with other personal situations that won't allow them to finish high school. So I look at the effort, and I look at the school system trying to make sure they have a place to go and, you know what I mean, and complete their education.
Well, Cumberland County does a good job with that, with all the different initiatives that we have for dropout prevention. I mean, the kids can go to Algebra Wilkins High School and kind of work at their own pace. And the Student Services Department, they sponsor an initiative every single year. Actually, next week, videos are due convincing kids to stay in school. And so my kids, we're working on in middle school, and our concept, I'm not going to put it out there because somebody might try to steal our concept, but you have to watch the video, and it'll be released within the next couple of weeks. But I think it's important to know that you do need to be in school. We commend them for going to a community college if they cannot handle it. But technically, in my opinion, they have dropped out of the public school system.
My question to you is then,
But they dropped in somewhere. I'm sorry.
I'm glad they
That's
did.
okay.
Yes, I'm glad they did.
North Carolina gives our kids lots of options and opportunities, and we have a virtual public high school where, you know, they can leave their traditional high school and they can go and finish their coursework online. How is that different than them leaving the traditional high school and finishing their program at a community college to continue their education? I'm glad to see that they're finishing somewhere.
Me too.
But could it be just considered another alternative to the traditional setting?
I guess from my perspective, it's just under the umbrella. Because there are some different regulations. Community college is a little bit more lax in the regulations. Part of the public school experience is that you learn so many different things of how the public works and how it is to be with it at large. Whereas the community college is technically a specialty because everybody doesn't go to the community college. So you're working with a special population.
Well, and that kind of speaks to what we might need in our public schools is, you know, we've done away with a lot of our vocational programs. You know, some children, either they're just not interested or maybe their abilities are just higher in other areas. You know, when they go into this vocational program at Fayetteville Tech, they might be very successful, but maybe English too isn't something that speaks to their strengths. So maybe that goes back to maybe some things that we need to reconsider in our schools.
Right. Actually, with our special ed population, they don't always have the skills and ability to finish a high school, but they can go to, you know, maybe they can go to a community college and be very successful there. So, and plus, you know, having that EC, what am I trying to say? That the EC stigma name, the label, yeah. So I think that's an excellent opportunity for our EC population.
And maybe that could be a partnership. If we don't have the resources or the people to make that possible in our public schools, like you were saying earlier, having it as a transition, but where they still had certain requirements so that it actually counted as something and not just a dropout, I think would be good.
Absolutely right. So there's a lot of different things going on with high schools. There also is our new grading policy.
So this story came out twice. The first time the story came out, it was saying that with the grading scale in high schools, when freshmen entered high school in the upcoming year, that they would be put on a 10-point grading scale. So 100 to a 90 was an A, and an 8.
Let Adia do the math.
We talked about that on the show.
Okay, well, just for those who might not have tuned in that day, well, so there's a 10-point grading scale as far as A, B, C, D. But we, on the show, we're talking about, well, what about the 10th and 11th and the 12th graders?
Especially when they're in the same class together.
The same classes together, but are being graded differently on a different scale. Well, the state board has just approved on Thursday a 10-point grading scale for the entire high school.
Yay, I love that.
So a 9th and 10th grader in the same class, they make a 92, it's going to be an A.
Isn't it?
Right.
They make an 89, it's going to be a...
And I feel good about that. Because I was a little bit, I was questioning how would that, go over with students who are sitting in the same classroom, or even what about siblings in the same household?
And I commend the Board of Education because there was a lot of feedback. I mean, we chimed in on it, parents talked about it, and they listened. They called a special meeting, and they actually made the adjustment. So I commend the State Board of Education. Kudos to them for making that adjustment because it's about fair and equality. But one thing that we have to know is that it's not retroactive. So just because you got those 90s, it's not all of a sudden going to bump your GPA up. It's not going to help you in that way.
So, Marla, what if somebody at the state board tuned into our show and said, Tar Heel teachers got a point, and changed the whole policy? We did that, y'all.
We changed the whole policy.
Well, we're talking about Common Core and college ready, so I think that's a big consideration in looking at the grading scale.
I'm glad you
And they
said
did talk
that.
about that,
They
trying to make sure that the high schools are aligned with the colleges and getting the kids prepared for that.
Right.
So.
Risha, you mentioned kids in the same household. You're still going to have households where you have a student in elementary or middle school and a student in high school where the middle schooler gets a 92 and has a B, and the high schooler gets a 92 and has an A.
That's true.
Has there been any talk about it changing across the board, or do you guys know?
They haven't said anything yet. What do we want? We can talk about it and then it'll just happen. They'll have a meeting next week.
Yeah, I like the consistency too.
But you know what? This happens quite a bit because think about EOG scores and the scale scores, where I mean it's constantly changing. So they try to perfect it and try to make it the best they can, and so I commend them for doing that. So at this time, we're going to take a quick break, and we're enjoying the conversation. When we return, we're going to continue to discuss here on iTEACH, the Tar Heel Teachers Radio Show. We'll be right back. We're so glad that this is our first show and that as our first guest we have Pamela Sands, the Media Coordinator of the Year for North Carolina.
Welcome.
It's such a great thing. So tell us about this whole thing. How did you become the Media Coordinator of the Year? Or tell us about what your life has been like since you've been named the Media Coordinator of the Year. Because that's such a prestigious title.
My life has been the same, actually. The only thing different is that we get more resources for our media center from some of the vendors that we work with. And so it's just been getting to order more books.
And a new parking spot.
Oh, I do get a new parking spot right up front by the door, so that's pretty sweet.
And your invisible crown, I'm sure you walk around.
The media department actually got me a crown with black and gold because I'm a huge Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
Nice.
And so they have a crown with black and gold feathers and it lights up for me. So it sits on my desk.
Now, the last time that I've interviewed you, you had already known that you were Media Coordinator for Cumberland County Schools for quite a bit. Now, when you were at the state conference, did you have any idea that you were about to clinch the title?
I didn't. And I didn't know anything about the other three women who were the finalists from the different regions in the state. And so, you're standing there in front of everybody and you're listening, and then they start reading from a recommendation, and I'm sitting going, oh, that kind of sounds like me. Oh, maybe that isn't me. Oh, well, that kind of sounds like me. Well, maybe that isn't me. And then they get to the part where it said she has taught in all of the high school, elementary, and middle school levels, because we've worked in all three. And so I just started grinning, and I thought it was me, and it was funny because in the pictures that my friends have taken, the other two women turned and they looked at the fourth woman, just thinking it was her, and I don't know that anything had ever said that she had done all three, and I was standing over there by myself, and everybody else was looking at the woman in the middle. I'm just kind of sitting there going, I think that's me. So, it was really exciting. Thank you.
Yeah,
It's nice when you are recognized for the hard work. I mean, I know you personally. I know the wonderful things that you do. So it's nice when you see people recognized for the great talents, because we have so many wonderful teachers
Yes.
and media specialists and people in education. So it's very important that we recognize them. No, it's not about the recognition, and we don't live for it. But when it happens, it's like, oh my goodness, I was recognized. Speaking of being recognized, we've heard quite a bit about the show. Like, a lot of people have been tuning in, and we're getting great feedback from the show. So we appreciate all the supporters out there.
Well, you do know when she won, she got balloons, and she got this big banner. Did you know she didn't even want to put her balloons up? I had to convince her to put her balloons up. Let somebody send me some balloons.
No, wait a second. My balloons, I put up on the desk in my media center, but the banner is not put up. It's really, really big, and I just don't have a place to put it. But Cumberland, I try to be humble. But Cumberland County actually did a great job of making me feel honored.
Thank you, Cumberland County.
Yes, thank you, Cumberland County, because
And I'm Jody Holly. She's over media services now, so a lot of the thanks, I'm sure, goes to her. And it's an entire team, but I'm sure she sets the tone.
Absolutely. They had a big thing at our last professional development for me with the banner and the crown, and people coming up and giving me hugs. And
you were at Reading Rocks. I saw you at Reading Rocks as one of the lead marshals.
And I got to be one of the marshals at Reading Rocks and got to say a little something on the stage before we started walking. And that was just really special. So kudos to them, and I just really appreciate it and I'm really excited. I think we have a lot of strength in our media department, and I think we have a lot of potential. And I'm glad to see it getting recognized.
Let's talk about that. You got something to go ahead.
Pamela, I was just curious, are you given the opportunity to speak with other media coordinators? You know, have you been in front to kind of share what you do?
As far as within our county
or outside?
Well, I've led some professional developments in our county. You know, a lot of us do different sessions on things that we think are our strengths or that we work towards. But actually, in February, Arisha and I are going to be presenting at a librarians summit at ECU on collaborating and co-teaching.
That'll be good.
In the media set program. So,
That's fantastic.
very excited about that.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so what is the one thing that you would advise other media coordinators that would set them apart or set them forward in their schools to get, I know in our school, they count the rotation, they call it rotation of books.
Okay.
What is the one thing that you would, what one thing of advice that you would give the other media coordinators?
That's a good question.
I really don't think it's so much about the circulation or the rotation of books. I think it's about how we support our kids. And to me, being essential and being a part of my school atmosphere and just the whole environment is the co-teaching and the collaborating with my teachers. And it doesn't have to be like in the middle school and the high school. So often it's just your reading classes, your English classes who go to the media center. But it shouldn't be. Last year I did projects with our social studies and with science and with language arts, and it should be. I mean, we're all educators.
Yes.
Well, I guess not technically, we don't have to be. Many of us are educators, and we have a whole plethora of information. It's not limited to just your reading classes. And so don't feel like you impose on us if you come and say, hey, I've got this idea, how can you help me? Because that's our job.
So it sounds like you're building great relationships with the teachers across content and exposing the things that you have in the media center that can be useful in the classroom.
I think so. And, you know, so often you might have a great project you're doing, but if you say, this is what I'm doing, I'm like, oh, I know a web tool that you could use for that.
Right.
And so they'll bring them in and I'll say, you know, I'll teach the web tool if you teach the content part. And, you know, just the working with the kids is the best part of the job.
Right.
And the students see that as well, and they see the collaboration, and so that's helping them to build the skills that they need.
What do you think? What do you think the kids say about you?
Oh, it's hard to tell. Depends on the kid. It depends on the day. You know how that works. I hope that they say that I'm always welcoming. You know, when the kids come in, even if I'm at my desk working, and I am a lot, because when we're not in front of a class, 90% of everything else we do is on a computer, whether it's purchasing, reading book reviews, whether it's cataloging, creating flyers for different programs, scheduling, all those things. So I'm usually at my desk, but I have a nice open desk area, and I can see kids as they come in. So I always try to look up and say, "Good morning, how are you today?" You know, and greet them on their way out. Have a great day. And so I hope that they say that they feel welcome when they come into our media center.
So have you started buying anything with the fundings that you have that would draw more children into the media center?
I did. Our collection development was due in November, and I put in our order that I got from the vendors through the media coordinator of the year. And I posted on Edmodo for the kids, anybody who had ideas that they wanted, you know, to see in our library. And then, of course, I read the reviews and made sure it was school appropriate and so on. And some things weren't, but some things, a lot of it was. And then I have 21 library assistants who work with me throughout the day. I have students every class period.
21?
Yes, because I have them
Wow.
7 class periods, you know, so one class I have 6, one class I have 1, you just never know. But they usually run the circulation desk, and I made that an assignment for them this year, was to give me 5 fiction books and 5 nonfiction books, maybe it was 10, that they think we should add to our collection.
Speaking of a teacher and making requests, there was a teacher up in Boston who requested that all of her students over the winter vacation that they take through, it was a grant or through Capital One, I believe, and she wanted to make sure that her kids had a chance to walk away with books, and they ended up getting 3 books, and she ended up winning $150,000 for her own personal use.
Oh, wow.
And you know what she turned around and did? She donated all $150,000 to the school. She gave it to the school. So what do y'all think about that?
Well, I think it's funny that we were talking about it because the kids, by her doing that, all of the kids, I believe, got 3 books each, and then she made sure everyone else in the school received 3 books. And I know the article talked specifically about one of the books she bought purposely so that the kids at home could have a picture book to look through. So she wasn't just thinking about the kids in the school, she was thinking about their siblings at home, and I thought that was great.
I think what she did, okay, and I think if I received that much money for that outside of the purpose, you know, I set out to get books, I got books. If I received that much money, I know that I would give back because it's in me to give. But if it's for personal use, some of it would have been used personally. Because I'm thinking about, as a teacher, we don't have all the money we need. There's always more month than there is money.
Okay, think about this, Alicia. I'm sure you probably, I mean, we all have to think about this. You can teach a lot better if you're not worrying about your light bill.
Amen.
That's
You know,
right.
so I mean, that's something to think about. I think you have a legitimate point. I think a lot of people reading that article say, I commend her. I think she's a selfless individual. But I think some people would say, I'm okay with keeping a little bit for myself.
Well, and it just depends on her way of personally fulfilling that.
Right.
You know?
That's what I was wondering about too. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's amazing. I'm not taking anything away from this woman. No matter what, she gave $150,000 to this school, so that's wonderful. But you know, what comes to my mind is, does she have a trust fund that she gets every month? You know, what does she have coming in? And if you have that and you still give back, I mean, that still says
that is amazing. But think of how
first
many movie
class.
stars are taken care of.
That's true.
They money,
Yeah.
and they want their money to make more money.
That's
so
true.
Very selfless
Still says
act.
a whole
Very
lot about
selfless
her.
act.
Absolutely.
Yes, I commend her for that.
And actually, the mayor in Boston has been very celebratory of her, and I mean, the story has made national news. So I'm certain that we're going to hear a lot from her because somebody that selfless, I mean, they deserve to be celebrated. So we commend her, and she's awesome.
Yes.
And she's gonna reap what she sowed.
Well,
Put out some good energy.
I know we just got a raise and it was nice, but I need some more.
Okay, so this raise that we got, I know I have 20 plus years, and I think I saw maybe a small change in my my check, whereas the younger teachers received maybe a little bit more money than what the older teachers. So it kind of makes you feel like, you know, so are they leaving us out and looking more at trying to keep the younger teachers and just kind of phasing the veteran teachers out?
Well, that was a discussion down in New Hanover County. They have a legislative session each year, and I think that should be like the model for the state, that they get their legislators together with their teachers and their administrators, and they have those collaborative conversations, and they do this every year. So I think that's fantastic. But they were having conversations that they were really pushing their legislators to go and push for veteran teachers to receive more money. But what do we consider to be a veteran teacher?
I think all of us here had that discussion before we started, and some say 5 years, some say 10 years. I know back in the day, I'm not going to date myself, but when you received your tenure was when you were considered a seasoned teacher, or a veteran.
So like I'm in my 8th school year. I don't consider myself a veteran. I don't consider myself a beginner either, but I just don't feel like I've made veteran status. Like when I don't know. I guess we have to have a working definition of what a veteran is as far as teaching. Yeah.
I think so, Marlo. I think it's I don't know. You can be a teacher for a short amount of time and have a great impact. You can be a teacher for 10 years and not make any impact. So, and some people just move faster than others. So I think it's an individual consideration for that status.
I agree. And I know that for the 5 to 10 year teachers, they got the biggest raise. The 18.5%. So, well, that's what and that's what I'm wondering if they're talking about past that 10-year mark, because that's where it kind of started to go down.
Exactly.
And I think that they're looking at it from a business point of view. Okay, we've got those that are on their second half of their term. We've got them. They're going to hold on for that retirement. So we want to keep these 5 to 10 years who still they're not close enough to where they're going to stay in just for their retirement. But do I think that's necessarily fair? No. So I think it's great that we're advocating for ourselves, that New Hanover County is doing that, because, it's a step in the right direction, because it's not the top 25% anymore, which originally was what the plan was. Right. But I think it's great that we're continuing, because they made that change because we made such a big stink about it. Right. So it's hopefully us continuing to speak out about it is going to help you guys get what you deserve.
And just remember, all these issues that are coming up, you all are the next ones that are coming up behind us. So what affects us now is going to affect you in the future.
Exactly.
Well, I feel
you're going to be in that same place.
Well, and I feel like we... Sorry,
no, go ahead.
I feel like we are who we are because of those teachers that have
Thank
been...
you.
Welcome. It's the truth. Whenever I started, I had a very good mentor teacher who's now, she's in her 29th year of teaching. She got a 0.5% raise, and I know she deserves so much more than that.
Well, I think that speaking for someone who's in the 5 to 10 range, I mean, the big elephant in the room, but I really do believe that most people in this range would have loved for us to have across the board. I mean, when it was projected to the media, it was, teachers are receiving a 7% raise, when in actuality, that was the average. Some receive more, some receive less. So I think if they would have did one flat rate, even if it was 2%, at least we would have all been in the same boat. I might not have gotten as much, but I think when they say, well, at least teachers got 2%, it would have been fair and equitable.
Well, and then when you talk about those of us, I'm in year 17, and so I'm in that, you didn't see much of a change. And then you start talking about taking away longevity and rolling it in, there's really not a difference for those of us above that 10-year range. And then they put the cap on at 30 years, you can't make anything more than a certain amount. Some of us were already getting close, so that means over the next 13 years of my career, I don't have any way to really go, because they've put this cap on what I could potentially make in the next 13 years.
Definitely not allowed.
But if you look at our attrition rates last year, we had 14,000 teachers leave the state. If we want to keep these good teachers in and motivated, the average teacher, we want to motivate them and push them to that next level. We've got to do something different. We've got to offer an incentive. That's just human nature. We can't expect people to come in and give 2,000%, which is what we want to give.
That's what our children need.
And then they have to go home and worry about how they're going to take care of their families. That's just not... That's not right.
Legislator, most of those are older retired people or just older people. Those are the ones that are voting on these things, but yet it affects...
Well, it's always the people who've never been in the classroom who make decisions for us, but honestly, I just feel like they play with educators' pockets, because they tell us, it's a game, because they tell us, go to school, further your education, and then you'll be rewarded for it,
But what really bothers me is whenever they look at you as a younger person and they say that North Carolina's so down at the bottom, and they just look, well, why don't you just move to another state? But you have to realize everyone has homes and they have families. I mean, I can't just move up and go to another state. Some people can, but my roots are here in North Carolina, so why should I have to leave just in order to make more money? That's not fair to me.
The requirements are different for different states, too. And I'm going to go to California, you got to see, are they going to accept our teaching license?
Exactly. And then what about our kids? North Carolina's children are the future, but they are. If we're not giving them the best that we can, the best people and the best educators that we can, because we're not paying them, then we're doing them a disservice too. And I was going to make this point earlier that you were saying that a lot of these people haven't been in the classroom. The majority of them were formerly businessmen, or they are businessmen still. Mm-hmm. So I think that we all have to advocate for ourselves and view it as businessmen and women also. This budget, okay, it makes sense from a business sense, but I'm going to come back at you and explain to you why we need it different,
And hence we have this Tar Heel teacher platform.
That's right.
To advocate for
Exactly.
teachers and give them a voice to help everyone understand exactly the inside part of teaching. It looks great on the outside sometimes, but there are some things that we have to contend with, and one of them is our profit books.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is a great platform, and we use this platform for positive and talk about what's going on in education. But there's also different platforms, and there was a teacher who used the Facebook platform. And what did she do, Dia?
About the hair, I'm sure if you're listening, you probably heard about it. A little girl came into her classroom after Christmas break, and it looked like her hair had not been combed. It had lint in it, and she decided that she was going to do the little girl's hair. She made her classroom a salon on that day, and she posted the picture on Facebook. And
She didn't
now
show the face.
she didn't. It was just the hair job. And it's controversial, and from what I understand, people are getting on her about it. And I'm interested to know what you all think. She considered herself doing a good deed because this little girl's hair looked like it needed to be combed.
Okay, I have a confession.
Okay.
I've done the exact same thing. Because
But you haven't posted on Facebook.
I haven't posted.
Which goes back to social media we were talking about earlier.
We don't have Facebook. But when you think about the hierarchy, and you think about the pyramid and the basic needs, everybody wants to be clean. It's not the children's fault. So that was something.
What did the child say whenever she saw
After
her?
she finished, she's like, "Oh, pretty."
Yeah.
So, she felt good about
grateful
herself.
and thankful, yes.
But
And
my
then
issue
there's
is-
skills that you're teaching them also about hygiene, about cleanliness, about, we're educating the whole child. So I think that's part of us as educators. If it's neglect, see, they're looking at the teachers, but what about the part on the neglect from the parents?
Here was my thing when I first heard about it. I guess, how you always have questions, and because we don't, we can't invite her on the show to speak. Was this the day after she got back from break, or had this been a consistent thing? Because if this is something that was like the first day after break, did she talk to the counselor or the social worker and bring that to the attention of the social worker? I think that's important as a teacher to know that when something's not right, you're supposed to contact the social worker. Get that social worker involved. Hey, I need for you to see this little girl's hair. Does the girl come in a second day like that? There's a problem. I definitely understand the teacher wanting to help that out, but we need to make sure that we're not damaging our careers.
You know what? On that note, it was something that was consistently happening, and this was
Okay.
just one day. I said, "Look, let's put teaching right here, and let's do another type of teaching. Let me help you. Let me show you some things about."
Cosmetology classes that we offer, so.
Yeah.
This was elementary school.
When
These
But I'm
poor
talking about it's
babies.
still something that must be. I mean, it is a form of teaching, like you're saying. But on the flip side, then some people say, "Well, why did you put it on Facebook?"
And that was the other thing.
And my issue too is because it is 21st century. It's 2015. I'm not certain if it's not a hoax because the child was not saying. I mean, how can we actually verify that this indeed happened? Because so many different hoaxes happen. I mean, it could be her own child that she did her own child's hair and put it on Facebook. I mean, I just throwing it out there. I thought about it because it could be a hoax, and we're talking about it. So we're gonna have to get our investigators on
I
that.
never thought about that, but
You know how I.
But
feel.
maybe they just did that so I can put my stuff out there. But no, I didn't look at it from that perspective. That's another way of looking at it. But I'm gonna leave on this note that the idea of helping a child when they come to school like that. And I understand the proper protocol with the counselors, the social workers, and all that. But sometimes they have paperwork to do. They have to contact the parent and hear this child.
So much.
Yeah, and they, sometimes a child comes to school with tattered or torn clothes, and so it's just a call. It's a call that you make.
And that teacher was probably thinking, you know what? This is going to be my Christmas present to this little girl.
My only thing, I just wish you would have just kept it between the two of them, not made a social media thing. But that's our society. We overshare. Even teachers, we overshare. So.